All right, man, peace. So, the proverbial shit has hit the fan with the Cleveland Cavaliers, particularly Mr. Kevin Love, who the Cleveland Cavaliers, led by Mr. LeBron James, have decided is the reason or the main reason why they're not playing as well as they should be playing, or as well as the liberal sports media has predicted that they would be playing this season. Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
And you know where we're starting. It is Believe Land no more. Everyone's frustrated. The team has lost 5 of their last 6. Ty Lue won't change the lineup. The Isaiah Thomas experiment isn't working out. LeBron isn't playing up to his standards, calling himself and the teammate. And now our Adrian Wojnarowski is reporting that the team has issues with Kevin Love holding an emotional team meeting prior to Monday's practice where several players challenged the legitimacy of Love leaving the loss to OKC with an illness and missing Sunday's practice.
You know what that is? For them to be making that big a deal, and for what he did against the Oklahoma City Thunder to be the centerpiece of that meeting, that's the equivalent of a guy who thinks that he's the perfect boyfriend and his woman continuously tries to start arguments with him. You know why that is? Because she's ready to move on from you. When you hold a team meeting and the focus of your team meeting is directing all of your ire at a player who was by all opinions, the second best player on your team when you were 18-1 over a 19-game stretch, all of a sudden everything is his fault. You know why that is? Because they're looking for people to blame. And because LeBron James, being the basketball mastermind and the basketball genius that he is, also is filled with feminine energy, I'm pretty sure that nothing was resolved in that meeting, because the problems that they have are predicated off of the fact that LeBron James plays in a very young style. Even though he has tremendous stats, he plays in a young way. He does not play in a mature style. If his style was more mature and the system that they ran offensively was more mature, they could take those older players and maximize what they can do. See, for example, I use the Chicago Bulls team. The second three-peat team did not play the same way as the first three-peat team, because the second three-peat team was filled with players in their early to mid-30s. The first three-peat team used to love to run, trap. They would trap you for a whole quarter, dunk over you. The second three-peat team wanted to hit a lot of mid-range jump shots, out-execute you. They would trap you in spurts if they needed to, but they wanted to run a lot of half-court sets, a lot of mid-range jump shots. The Cleveland Cavaliers are trying to play like they're a team of 23-year-olds when they're a team of 33-year-olds. And it's led by Mr. LeBron James and also by Mr. Tyronn Lue, who does not have the wherewithal to install an offensive system that can maximize the older players on his team. That's why they have players that have to sit on the end of the bench, and they can't come off the bench because they can't keep up with the style of play that Cleveland is utilizing. They're running too much.
A lot of finger pointing right now, gentlemen. Stephen A., I'll start with you. Plain and simple, is it time for change in Cleveland?
Yes, it is. I'm going to say it right now on the airwaves, and I'm glad my man Jalen Rose is to my right. It is time. It is time. The Cleveland Cavaliers should trade Kevin Love.
Is that supposed to be some type of revelation? Well, we know that they will trade Kevin Love. Whether they should trade Kevin Love or not remains to be seen. Remember, this is the same Kevin Love who was on the last 3 Cleveland Cavaliers teams that made it to the NBA Finals. Now, will they be able to find a trade arrangement that will be feasible to move a Kevin Love, and I'm sure most likely a J.R. Smith and or an Isaiah Thomas in that package? Because once again, if I were a betting man, I would bet that at the end of that team meeting, the main participants in that back and forth, in that alleged screaming match, were as angry as they were resentful when the meeting started.
They should trade him. And oh, by the way, it's not because I'm getting on Kevin Love, who I happen to like a great deal, and I think for the most part does his job.
Well, allegedly, Kevin Love is not a well-liked player around the NBA for whatever reason. The difference is that with Cleveland, the dynamics of him being disliked are totally different. When he was in Minnesota, he could be disliked and he could tell everybody else on the team to kiss his ass and kick rocks because he was the best player on the team. A team, by the way, which never made the playoffs. You know, many people have made much of the fact that Kevin Love is the Cleveland version of Chris Bosh. What Kevin Love and Chris Bosh both have in common is that they were both considered overachieving power forwards whose teams never made the playoffs. So once again, that is why it is so easy for them to be made the whipping boys. Because what is inferred by them constantly being the focus of the negativity is that they couldn't do it without LeBron, so they pretty much have to put up with it.
I'm telling you why they should trade Kevin Love. Kevin Love don't want to be there. Kevin Love don't want to be there. He don't want to be around this mess. And I'm going to go a route that most people wouldn't, but damn it, I'm me. So I'm going to take it there. You're in a locker room that is clearly dysfunctional. Clearly dysfunctional.
Of course it's dysfunctional. It's led by LeBron James.
You got the owner butting heads with the world's greatest player.
Allegedly the world's greatest player. To let Isaiah Thomas, and not the Isaiah Thomas currently on the Cavaliers. When I say Isaiah Thomas, I'm talking about the all-time great little man who played with the Detroit Pistons. To let him tell you LeBron James is no longer the best player in the NBA. It is now Kevin Durant.
You got a rookie GM in place. You don't really have a president with stature to speak of because Dan Gilbert doesn't want that because he wants everybody to believe that he's the guy that is all-knowing about the sport of basketball. In between, you got JR with his agenda. You got Isaiah Thomas with his agenda. You got Tristan Thompson, who's a reserve, trying to learn how to be a reserve because he was never a reserve before.
Tristan Thompson is a half step out of the NBA. Tristan Thompson is a guy who, fortunately for him, he's around 7 feet tall, or he would not be in the NBA. He has no offensive moves. He has 2 left feet, and he has a pea brain. Anyone who would affiliate themselves with the Kardashian clan is a pea brain.
And you're Kevin Love, and I'm gonna say this: it's kind of a little bit difficult when you white and you're around a bunch of brothers with a bunch of issues.
It's kind of difficult when you black and you're around a bunch of brothers with issues, Steve. But I get your point.
It's a little bit different. I'm just saying it's a little bit different. I'm not saying it's bad or worse. It's a little bit different.
I never found it different, but go ahead.
Of course you never find it different. You the sports analyst version of Malibu's Most Wanted. Fake-ass rapper.
That's because you got level flavor, bro. You know what I'm saying? So it's a little bit different for you. But
Max
in
got
most
bars,
situations, there you go. In most situations.
Yeah, right. Max got bars. Yeah, you must mean gold bars that he inherited from his grandfather. Those are the kind of bars you're talking about, right, Jalen? The hell out of here.
Situations, it's a little bit different. Kevin Love, from what I've been told, he's a professional. He's going to do what he's got to do. But is he really, really excited about being there, surrounded by all of this mess? Hell no.
Of course he's not. He's gonna tough it out like a good soldier. He knows that he's pretty much in a no-lose situation. Either he gets traded and he keeps getting paid, or he doesn't get traded and he keeps getting paid. He's, a 7-8-time All-Star in his career. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He's an NBA champion. Period.
No. So do him a favor. Get rid of him because he don't need to be a part of this. And oh, by the way, here's what happened Saturday. While the Cavs were in the midst of getting annihilated, I mean, blown out of the building. How you score 124 points and still lose by 25? It's beyond me. But that's what happened, okay? They gave up damn near 150 points. Kevin Love left the game early, but he didn't leave the game. He left the arena. He went home. He was chilling out, watching the game on TV like the rest of us.
Steve, why you gonna do him like that? He made it look like Kevin Love left at halftime and was chilling on the couch eating popcorn like, damn, the Cavs can't play no defense. Where's they power forward?
While his boys, supposedly his boys, were there getting blown out. That was the real issue that the players had. The fact that they came into the locker room. LeBron is very cool with Kevin Love. He happens to like Kevin Love a lot. The man sat up there and was like, damn, he's home. He didn't even know he had left the arena. That was the problem that they had with Kevin Love.
And I agree with that. Kevin Love needs to communicate. That can certainly make it look like you were jumping ship. He needed to tell everyone, at least the coaches, let someone know that, look, I'm sick. I need to get out of here. I need to go to the hospital. I need some fluids, whatever. But you just can't bail out on the team midway through the third quarter and be like, well, this shit is over. I'm heading home. I need to eat me an orange and have some tea. You can't do that.
Because it was tantamount to you and your boys getting in a fight, and then they turn around and you, APP, there's nowhere to be found. That's how they interpreted it, and that was the problem.
Well, I mean, if there are only 2 guys knocking anyone out in the fight, which is LeBron and Kevin Love, if I'm Kevin Love, I'm turning around saying, Yeah, I wasn't there, but neither were you. Where were you? When I'm there, I'm knocking everybody out.
And I'm pretty sure that's what he stated at the meeting, Max. Because if I'm Kevin Love and you're coming at me for leaving early, I would look at certain guys and I say, well, at least I only left last Saturday. You've left for the entire season. J.R. Smith, Channing Frye, and I mean, who the hell could have been attacking Kevin Love? It better have been mostly LeBron. Because even if D. Wade is attacking Kevin Love, I'm looking at D. Wade like, dude, your wife is down in Mexico getting her coochie eaten out by Olivia Munn, and you in my face because I left the game early? Maybe you need to leave the game early and go check on your woman. Allegedly.
Yeah, what are you doing? LeBron James has been great wire to wire on the offensive side. He has to save himself on defense, and that is really what the issue is. He is not leading the team defensively, and the other players on this team are not self-motivated. If they were, they would be playing defense without their leader having to lead the way.
Well, hey, Denzel Washington once did a great movie called Remember the Titans. And there was a phenomenal scene in that film when they were depicting a lot of acrimony between the black players and the Caucasian players. And the black linebacker told the Caucasian linebacker, he said, attitude reflects leadership. So if the remainder of the team is not playing defense, if they feel like it's a hopeless situation and LeBron is the leader, what does that say about him?
Hey, that goes for Tristan Thompson, who LeBron got paid, and everybody. Why do they need to see LeBron play defense in his 15th season when he has to save himself for high leverage moments in the playoffs in order for them to play defense? That's problem number one on the defensive end. On the offensive end, Isaiah Thomas doesn't have his basketball legs yet. This idea that Isaiah is playing for a contract to me is ridiculous, and I will tell you why. I know what Dwayne Wade must be feeling. Wait a minute. In the second unit, this dude just jacking up shots. He's not passing the ball, right? But the bottom line is, you don't get paid for counting numbers anymore. If that were the case, Isaiah wouldn't be paid $7 million a year right now because he was averaging 22 in Sacramento and couldn't find a taker to the tune of even $10 million a year back then. So
maybe because he's 5'8.5". Max Kellerman, there are different types of points. There are certain players who can average 22 points a game on a bad team. Yes, Isaiah Thomas went to the Boston Celtics and averaged 28.9 on a good team led by a great coach. But when you're evaluating talent and you're evaluating stats, you have to take everything into account. There's a big difference between Steph Curry's 27 a game with Golden State and, say, what's this brother's name that plays down there in Phoenix? A Devin Booker averaging 23 a game or 24 a game with Phoenix, even though he's on the rise. Still, his points are meaningless. That means that his style of play is not really having an effect on the game. His points are not having an effect on the game. So the next level for him is mental. I say all that to say this. Isaiah Thomas will have to prove himself for his entire career because he is miniature. So what is implied is that even though he's scoring 25, he's giving up 28. So it's one thing if you're Steph and you're scoring 28 and your opponent is, say, on average scoring 19 or 20, unless you catch a superstar on a hot night like a Chris Paul or Damian Lillard or Russell Westbrook who can give you 35 or 40. On an average night, Steph is outscoring his man by anywhere from 8 to 9 points. When you're Isaiah Thomas and you're 5'8", yes, you're scoring 28, but you're giving up 31 at your position. So you can't just look at everything according to what Isaiah Thomas has allegedly done in the past. Yes, he is going to have to prove himself his entire career, and no, he is not a max player. No pun intended, Max.
So Isaiah has to know better than I just have to put up a lot of points. You have to be a good player, and Isaiah is an excellent player.
No, he's not. No, he is not. Isaiah Thomas is a very good player. You cannot be last in the league in defense and be an excellent player. Sorry. He's been fully healthy with all systems a go. He is very good. I'll give him very good. But he never was Kyrie.
When he's healthy. He's not just a ball hog who makes bad decisions. When he gets into the paint, he dishes usually the right guy. He finishes well when he is really Isaiah Thomas. He is not Isaiah Thomas right now. I believe the Cavs can get out of the East with what they have. If you need to make a deal, then it's a Kemba Walker deal because Isaiah's an expiring contract. You take Kemba Walker, I would do that. Walker's a little bigger and so better defensively than Isaiah, and he's healthy. Or if someone like Anthony Davis was available, and they say we need Kevin Love and the Brooklyn pick and something, sure, of course, but barring something like that, they're going to have to stay with what they got and hope that Isaiah has his basketball legs by the end of the season, and they've integrated the offense, and LeBron's ready to lead on defense by the playoffs. And then they'll get out of the East where they'll get stomped by either Golden State or Houston in the finals.
Well, here's the problem with that. And I've been pushing for Anthony Davis to be traded. I was hoping that he'd be traded to Boston because I feel like that's the only team that has the coach that can possibly beat Golden State if he had enough horses. I think that New Orleans is now playing so well that Anthony Davis getting traded is pretty much out the window. I certainly don't think that the Cavaliers have enough to get Anthony Davis. They may have enough to get Boogie Cousins only because his contract is expiring. But how reasonable is it to believe that Boogie Cousins is going to be able to blend his style of play with LeBron James? Please understand that the Cleveland style of offense is totally predicated on the ball going through LeBron. LeBron has never played with a dominant big man before. His style of play really does not mesh well with the big man because LeBron really wants to be the big man. That's why it's kind of tough for him to play with a Tristan Thompson. Tristan Thompson's job is pretty much to just get rebounds. Does Boogie Cousins want to do that? No.
It's great to talk sports with family. And you guys asked me, is it time for there to be a change in Cleveland? You said that it's time to trade Kevin Love. I agree with you, but not for the same reasons. Okay. The reason why they should trade Kevin Love, that's the only value they have besides LeBron James.
Absolutely. That's why he'll have to be a part of any package that they make.
Do you realize that Iman Shumpert, J.R. Smith, and Tristan Thompson are all getting paid $179 million American dollars to play basketball, and they're having terrible seasons? In a salary cap driven sport, you need those guys to be productive. I haven't seen Tristan, and I can't front, since he became a Kardashian.
Of course, because his spirit is somewhere in a bottle at the Kardashian castle. That's why. I don't even know who the hell that nigga is. He might be a big black golem. Who the hell knows?
Now, I support power couples. However, look at his numbers in the finals. Look at what has transpired since then. He lost his starting job. They lost Kyrie Irving. They have lost their way as a basketball team.
Isn't it amazing? People are now finally giving Mr. Kyrie Irving a lot of the credit that he deserves. And a lot of the troubles that they're experiencing are being attributed to his absence. Sometimes the greatest MVP award that you can win is the one that you get because you're no longer around.
Next thing, you talked about playing for contracts. Everybody's playing for money, Max. They have 7 free agents on their team. They're the oldest team in the league. They're the most expensive team in the league. Yet Kemba Walker doesn't solve their issues.
Absolutely not. Kemba Walker's only about 3 inches taller than Isaiah Thomas, and he also will have the same issues guarding a Steph Curry as an Isaiah Thomas, just not as severe. But, I still would make that trade if I was Cleveland. If for no other reason, anything right now is better than Isaiah Thomas.
Rim protection, defense on the perimeter, as well as a cohesion for a team that is expected to win the East. But this squad that we're watching will not win the Eastern Conference the way they're playing basketball. The Toronto Raptors have improved, led by DeMar DeRozan. Washington Wizards will find a way to play better once the playoffs come. Oh, and by the way, the Boston Celtics are actually the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference, and nobody would love more than to eliminate the Cleveland Cavaliers than one Kyrie Irving.
I would love to see that. In regards to Toronto, they're playing much better this year, but in regards to them in Cleveland, I'll believe it when I see it. I've just seen Toronto have too many flameouts against LeBron over the last couple of years. I'll believe that one when I see it. The Washington Wizards have just as much, if not more, inner locker room turmoil as the Cleveland Cavaliers. The difference is they don't have LeBron James. Boston, I'll be rooting for them to beat Cleveland, but I don't think they have enough horses. And they may be gassed out by the playoffs. Boston, they look like a team that's going to gas out in the playoffs. I could see them getting to the finals. I could see them getting knocked out in the second round against the Wizards. I think that the Wizards are a very bad matchup for them.
Now, the LeBron James part, and adding to this roster. I go to LeBron because they're not going to win the championship regardless. The Warriors have gotten better since the finals. They've gotten worse since the finals. I said on this program, they would get swept by the Golden State Warriors. If I'm the GM, I go to LeBron and say, what do you want us to do? Because I would trade all of those dudes and the Brooklyn pick if I could get a Boogie, if I could get an Anthony Davis. But if I'm New Orleans, I'm not trading either one of those guys because they look really good playing with one another. It's a disaster right now that's going on in Cleveland.
I agree. That's the same thing I said. I just don't see New Orleans moving on any trades. If anything, they might try to bring in a shooter and go for it all this year, because they're going to be a problem. It's going to be very difficult to knock them out the playoffs, man.
But this team, the way we see them, will not win the Eastern Conference.
Look, I think it's fair to make all these points about the team now. And, this is the kind of Phil Jackson 7 rings or 11 rings team building stuff that's going on. They're not a team right now.
Correct.
The question is, can they become one by the time the playoffs roll around? Because they're obviously going to make the playoffs. And I think the answer is yes. And the reason I think that is, however Isaiah is playing now, this is not indicative of the kind of player he is. He's a good approximation of Kyrie on offense, and he's not a defender. We all knew that going in. The question is, can Isaiah get back to being most of the player he was last year on offense by the playoffs and integrate himself into the team's offense?
Well, first off, Isaiah Thomas is not even a good approximation of Kyrie. What he is he's a good player who's undersized, an overachiever, who had an offensive system that was totally focused around him. The current system that they're running is not even as focused around Kyrie as it was around Isaiah. And there's a discernible difference between the level of play of the team, and particularly Kyrie, than there was last year with Isaiah. It's nothing against Isaiah. I think he's great for what he can do and for his size. Overall, in judging him in contrast to other players, other good to great players at his position, he's good. He's probably a top 15 player at his position, fully healthy. No, I'll even give him top 12, fully healthy. But Kyrie, no. Kyrie is elite.
In a way that works with LeBron. I think the answer to that question, theoretically at least, is yes. And then the question becomes, can LeBron get himself to play defense toward the end of the season? That's always yes. He can do it when he chooses. He just has to pace himself, given his age and the miles on his legs.
Well, in order for him to pace himself, and he does need to pace himself, that means that they have to change their style of play. And once again, that's the reason why their team is struggling. They're playing the wrong style. They're playing way too fast. They have to slow it down. Their style has to match their personnel. They have to play a half-court style, run when you have the opportunity, but don't push the ball too much. You slow the game down. That will give your guys a chance to rest on offense and also on defense. And then they can guard their man on defense. And when other teams try to run you, you get physical with them. They need to play more of a grind style, similar to what Memphis used to play back, 4 or 5 years ago. And let LeBron get his ass in the post, set his teammates up. Yeah, his points are going to go down a little bit, but you'll see that the team will play better. And then you could run when you have the opportunity. You could run in spurts. You could run at the start of the first quarter, start of the third quarter. But when you're playing in the second and fourth quarter with a team where most of your better players are in their early 30s to mid 30s, you're going to gas out by the fourth quarter if you try to run with these teams, and that's what you're seeing.
So I think they can solve it from within unless there's an Anthony Davis available. Then you got to do what you got to do.
There's nothing to disagree with there. I just think you're missing an issue in terms of what we're discussing here. Because what we have to dissect and analyze is, if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, why would you say that about Isaiah Thomas? You know that he didn't want to come. He wanted to stay in Boston. He knew that was the best position, that was the best possible scenario where he could get his money, which is now in Cleveland, by the way, and that's suspect. You knew that he would be looking to get paid, as you just pointed out. You also knew that he was 5'9", that he was a defensive liability, that he made his bones by dancing on you and putting the ball in the hole. You knew all of this. So why would you feel the need at this particular juncture to allow a story to leak out that you got a problem with Isaiah Thomas when the man just came back?
Simple, Steve. Because Isaiah Thomas has shown that he does not have much discretion in speaking his mind and throwing certain people, whether it be the coaching staff or the upper management, under the bus. When you're just coming back from a hip injury and you're standing in front of reporters and talking about the lack of chemistry on the team and the fact that the team doesn't practice, that is an affront to upper management, that's an affront to the coaches, and that's an affront to the players who've been there for a long time, even if he's correct. It's kind of hard for you to talk about other people when you're not playing well. Even if what people know that what you're saying is true, the average person is not going to have the level of gravitas to say, you know what, you're right, as opposed to, well, what about you? Look at you, you're 5'8", you don't play defense, you don't pass, and your hip is withered.
Why would you do that? See, it's not about basketball when something like that happens. Because any acute basketball mind recognizes, Jalen, that guess what? It's not that complicated. If I know a brother trying to get paid, and the dude has been out half the season because of his hip, and he just got back a few games ago, and he's looking to get his legs under him, I'm not going to hold him accountable over a basketball issue unless it's something more than that is sifted into the locker room, and we looking at things that extend beyond basketball.
Yes, that's what it is, Steve. You finally hit on it, brother.
Question for both of you. I'll take all that at face value. I agree with it. The question is not, is everyone's playing for money, it's a professional league. Are these guys self-motivated? Are they the kind of guys who really want to win? Because to me, if the answer is yes, then they can work it out by the playoffs.
Well, you know what? Everybody thinks that issues in professional sports locker rooms can be solved with this rah-rah, sis-boom-bah mentality. Let's all cheer each other on. At the end of the day, if the players don't feel like there is a reasonable plan that's going to lead them in the right direction, they are going to tap out, and they're basically going to do what you've been seeing from the Cleveland Cavaliers, which is, I'm going to get mine.
To that, you say what?
I say for the Cleveland Cavaliers, it's not only about winning the division or winning the conference, it's about winning the championship. That's not going to happen.
No.
And we know that they need to make a move, and something drastically needs to happen because pillow talk is now being exposed. When LeBron James is talking about them getting killed in an inter-squad scrimmage, when Isaiah Thomas is talking about the team does not
Beyond repair? You think it's beyond repair?
I think it's beyond repair because we should know about these things. When LeBron James, after a game, and they go to him with a microphone and say, what do you think about the squad? And he says, I don't know about the coaching staff. I don't know about the players. I'm removing myself from that. We all know that people are there because he wants them to be there. Right?
And also, that's just him saying, as I've already touched on, I'm going to get mine, I'm going to do me. And it started with Tyronn Lue a week or so ago saying that there are people here with agendas. Tyronn Lue knows that the writing is on the wall for him and that he does not have LeBron's support. He knows that already. So the ship is sinking. That's what it boils down to.
And rightfully so, because he's an icon.
Let me finish a sentence for you, because everything that you just said is on point, but you know what you're really saying. So I'll just say it for you. What Jalen is saying, ladies and gentlemen, put that damn camera on me when I'm talking. What Jalen Rose just said to you comes down to this simple statement. It's CYA. Everybody's looking to cover their because they know they ain't going to win.
Well, hell, I just said that. Shit.
And so as a result, now you're fragmenting and you're coming apart and you're making sure, when this thing goes down and it ends roughly, it ain't me.
Correct.
It wasn't me.
So beyond the point of repair, it's past the point of no repair.
Because they know, let me tell you something right now, and I told you this last year before that damn finals started when LeBron got interviewed on the basketball court and he was talking about, I don't really want to think about Golden State right now. That's a little bit too stressful. I told you then, he walked in knowing he was going to lose the championship.
I agree. And if you go back and you look at the videos that I did covering the finals, I said after game 1, when LeBron walked off the court and he was slapping fire with his teammates and giving everybody that fake-ass dap, I said, you watch, as the games go on, he's going to be less and less magnanimous towards his teammates. He's going to be less and less brotherly towards his teammates, and that's exactly what happened. Because that's just his nature.
Now let me ask you a question. Wait, but forget that, because we ain't playing. He's the best in the world. You can't think like that at that point in time. At least get on the court.
Would it have made a difference?
No, I don't.
Oh boy, here goes the LeBron James stupor fan. Oh, well, would it have made a difference if LeBron really thought that he had a chance to win? See, you can't have it both ways, and that's LeBron James stupor fan 101. No matter what he does, they have an excuse for it. That's why they run around acting like LeBron is orchestrating losses and all this other dumb shit, because they just cannot conjure up in their head that LeBron is not good enough to do what they think he can do. Period. But like Stephen A is stating, you cannot go into the finals talking about, I don't want to think about Golden State right now. It's too much pressure. That means you already know that you're going to lose. Why is that? Because LeBron, as great as he is just a plan A player. If his plan A is not working, and plan A is being to storm the paint and come at you 100 miles an hour and dunking over people, when that doesn't work, you already know what he's going to revert to. I'm going to get mine, and that's that.
I don't believe so, but Max, at least as a competitor, at least get on the court for a game before having that attitude. Just get on the court. All I'm saying is this. What he's saying is, I'm telling you this. If he had that attitude before the finals began last year, and what Jalen said is absolutely right, Golden State has gotten better, and you've gotten worse. If he felt that way last year after having a surreal NBA playoff performance, could you imagine how they're thinking right now?
Here's the problem. Let me just say real quick.
I can tell you what he's thinking right now, Steve. He's thinking, damn, I hope I don't lose to Boston. I'll take a loss to anyone in the playoffs except for Boston. That's what he's thinking.
Real quick, here's the problem with that criticism of LeBron to me.
It's not a criticism.
Or a description of LeBron.
Description.
You don't like, but the critique in the sense that you don't like that attitude as a competitor. In other words, you believe there's a better attitude that would yield better results, or at least is more to your liking. The bottom line is you're talking about a man that has been to 7 straight finals, hasn't been done since the 60s, and Bill Russell in a different era, and is a 3-time champ. So the way he competes is apparently better than the way anyone else competes.
But the argument would be...
Well, no, it's not better than the way anyone else competes. It just means that he's able to get to the finals because he plays in a certain conference where teams have not been good enough to beat him. But when you're 3-5 in the finals, and 2 of your finals were miracles, what that tells me is that when he faces teams that are well run and have a great system, he cannot beat them because he's not coachable. LeBron does not know how to submit to a great coach. He wants to be the coach. And once again, every team that he's on must run the LeBron system. He's a plan A player, and when he runs into a Popovich, he runs into a Golden State, he's not going to beat them.
It would be, and I need your help with this, Jalen. The argument would be, Max, that he had a different attitude when he knew he had the crew.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so what I'm saying to you is this. But Jalen, myself to a lesser degree, just covering the sport for over 22 years, here's the reality. When you go and you talk to champions, they might look at a dude that has a better team. But when you're a player that elite, there is something inside of you that says, all I need is a break here, there, and I can take him. I can take him. And he was devoid of that feeling.
He had that the year before. He had that the year before when he beat a 73-win team.
Of course, because LeBron is a front runner. And he didn't believe he could beat the 73-win team with a Steph Curry with a bad leg and all those other things until he was able to sucker that idiot Draymond into sabotaging his own team.
Just not with KD also.
A couple of things. When you're Kevin Love and you get sick, if you can breathe, you have to play.
That's right.
Let me say it. If you can breathe,
you have to play.
You have to play. And so not only did he not play, but he left the arena. You can't do that. That's out.
He was watching the game on television like the rest of us in his house.
The next thing, let me bring you behind the curtain on something.
I think it's out.
When you're on a successful team and you make a mistake, everybody can call you on it and you're like, my bad. When you're on a terrible team or you're not meeting expectations and something goes awry, it's you guys' fault. It's not my fault. That's why we're talking about each person making individual quotes that have nothing concept because everybody's trying to look out for themselves. And lastly, LeBron James win and if he loses the finals this year, and I only say if because they're going to lose regardless if they make it out of the East. He will be 3-6 in NBA finals.
That's right.
He doesn't like that, but it is what it is. He does not have the crew because the Golden State Warriors are clearly better.
And it's not because the Golden State Warriors are necessarily built to be a super team. They just drafted well. They're an organic super team. Meaning what? They drafted one of the top 3 players currently in the NBA, Steph Curry. If you were to combine Draymond and Klay Thompson together, that would make a super player. And also they were able to sign Kevin Durant. So they're a super team, but they're very organic with it. LeBron tries to piece and patch teams together, which is what the original Cavs team was meant to be with him, Kyrie, and Kevin Love. But once again, because LeBron James has that supernova, that black hole persona to him, it's hard to deal with him for a long period of time.
The Houston Rockets are clearly better. And I mentioned teams in the Eastern Conference that if they don't get it together, they will get bounced early because they're making the road tougher. You fall to 3, you fall to 4. Now all of a sudden you got to play against Toronto in the playoffs. You got to play against Washington in the playoffs. And if you get to the
Don't give
finals,
me Washington right now. Not right now. Not right now.
I'm just
Don't
saying.
get me started with them damn Wizards right now.
I'm rolling with you. They're definitely
Washington
Mr. High.
no.
But what I'm saying is you make the journey a lot tougher. So once if you get to the finals, LeBron is exhausted. And the team that she picked to win last year in 5 games will now beat the Cleveland Cavaliers in 4 games.
If they get by the Rockets, by the way.
Correct.
We don't know if they get by the Rockets.
That's another.
I think that they'll get by the Rockets. Golden State might be Cleveland in 3.5 games this year. Shit, it might be game 4. Golden State up by 45 points, and the whole team just leave early. They just follow behind Kevin Love.
What you guys are focusing on, I agree with. Right now, what we're all saying is this is not a team right now.
Correct.
It's not a team. It's not
I
us
said it.
against
That's
the
why I
world,
started
right?
off. I started off
So
saying
the
that.
question is, you have to identify
LeBron.
what are the problems on the team. If you identify LeBron, it's over because LeBron is the whole thing, right? So you can't be LeBron. You got to work around that, whatever that is. So who is it, and what can you do to improve the situation before the end of the year? The best course may be for these guys to work it out.
Yeah, but
The best course may be for LeBron James to leave the franchise. Because if you cannot achieve your goals together, then it's time for you to depart from one another. That being the Cleveland Cavaliers franchise and LeBron James. If LeBron is not willing to make a commitment to sign a long-term deal with the team, then why should Dan Gilbert execute the trade that will get rid of their number 1 draft pick, and LeBron is not willing to come back? You're going to destroy the future of the franchise potentially.
you could say work it out, but the point is that when you start off the season with LeBron being on the phone with Dan Gilbert and LeBron wanting them to keep Kyrie, but Dan Gilbert saying, I want you to commit to 3 to 5 years. LeBron refusing. Dan Gilbert saying, the hell with it. And then after that, everybody is caught up in the middle. And then you see these storylines being picked apart. Dwayne Wade arrives. J.R. Smith's working hard in the offseason, thinking he tight with LeBron. And then all of a sudden, Dwayne Wade comes walking through the door. J.R. goes to the bench. He's salty about it. Kevin Love's in the middle of it. Isaiah Thomas got to get healthy. There's all these agendas. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to 2 people. It's going to come down to LeBron, and it's going to come down to Dan Gilbert.
When the Cleveland Cavaliers won the championship, you guys remember who made the big shot, right? Kyrie Irving on the right wing, 3-pointer over Steph Curry.
Yes, because he's a championship level player, and people were unwilling to give him the credit back then. Now they understand what his caliber of player is, what he brings to the table, not just skill-wise, but mentally, to be able to deal with LeBron for that time period and still be able to execute down the stretch of close games. It shows you his mental fortitude. This is why I laid out over the course of that whole situation between LeBron and Kyrie when their relationship was fracturing and disintegrating before our very eyes. It was obvious to me what Kyrie was going to do and why he was doing it, because he realized, if I could realize it, I'm sure he did, that there was no future in Cleveland. They were not going to beat Golden State because they were going to have to stand pat with their current roster. Golden State was only going to get a year better, and Cleveland was going to get a year worse because LeBron was not going to come back. He was going to hold the franchise hostage, hold the roster hostage, and this is why you're seeing what you're seeing now. Because many of those players are unhappy with the current situation because it's so tenuous. You don't know what's going to happen next. And that is chaotic. You cannot have a high level of functionality in a chaotic environment.
That's right.
If he has 2 years remaining on his contract, and LeBron has 1 year remaining on his contract, why would you trade him? You let the season play out. If LeBron walks, now you have an asset in Kyrie. You go to him and say, I'm going to build around you. Then if he's going to walk, then you move him.
Let's get the news. We have an obligation to give the news on that front. Kyrie knew that situation as well. Kyrie absolutely positively was definitive about wanting out.
So?
I'm just telling you, because he no longer wanted to play. Not only did he not want to play with LeBron, because of the things that transpired in Cleveland, he no longer wanted to be a part of the organization. So if you're the owner, I'm just saying, if you're the owner, Dan Gilbert, it's one thing for you to sit up there and look at this cat with 2 years, say the best player in the world has 1 year. It's another thing entirely when he's looking you in the face and saying, I've checked out. I don't want to be with you anymore.
I'm looking you in the face, saying you under contract and you want to get paid.
Word.
We got training camp.
Yeah,
we got a game tonight.
Well, you're going to get paid.
Okay.
The minute you show up, you're going to get paid. But that don't mean you're going to play the way you get paid. You know that. You know that.
Kyrie would.
I know that. I agree with you.
And how about Danny Ainge trading the #1 pick to go down for Tatum? traded Markelle Fultz, who's being redshirted in Philly, and traded Isaiah Thomas on a bum hip for Kyrie
Ainge
Irving.
is killing.
Oh, I mean, please, Danny Ainge. They should change Executive of the Year. That should become the Danny Ainge Award. Bottom line. Speaking of Danny Ainge, I mean, how the hell do you do that? You get arguably the best rookie in the draft other than Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum, and then you swing Isaiah Thomas for Kyrie Irving. Like, come on, man.
Killing the game.
No question. Gotta leave it there. Plenty more.
But anyway, that is part of the story on the Cleveland Cavaliers and their disintegration. All right, so now this is going to be the show, The Jump, with Rachel Nichols and Brian Windhorst. I like to refer to him because he certainly consistently has the inside track on everything Cleveland. Let's see what he has to say with his fat ass.
I guess we just have a little bit to talk about today, guys, but I do want to start with the Cavs because, Scotty, you have been part of those emotional team meetings. What is it like? Does it actually help?
Well, sometimes it helps, but when you point the finger at one player, it doesn't really help. I mean, I think this is a bigger issue than what we've all known about the Cavs. We watched them lose games after game, and now it comes down to a team meeting where they point the finger at one guy, being Kevin Love. I think it's much more deeper than that, and I think team meetings does help, but I think in this situation, players have to look at themselves and not just one guy. When you look at the whole picture of what's happening with the Cleveland Cavaliers, I can't point one finger at Kevin Love and say he's to blame. I think it's a collective effort, and I think all these players need to step up and play more like a playoff type of atmosphere. That's how you get out of these type of slumps.
All right, well, first off, I heard Woj's description of fiery was tame. I heard that this was really, really bad. And yes, it didn't just involve Kevin Love, but that was the start of it. It involved the front office. It involved play on the court. It involved decisions off the court. It involved accountability. There are certain players on that team who are like, wait a minute, Derrick Rose walked away from this team for 2 weeks because he needed a mental health break, and you welcomed him back with open arms. Kevin Love, okay, he doesn't have a doctor's note, but he goes home with a headache, and all of a sudden it's a federal case. And you got...
Well, the reason for that is that Kevin Love did not communicate. He does have a responsibility to communicate with his teammates, at the very least through his coach or through upper management, to let them know that he is so sick that he must leave. If he's that sick, then he has to go to the hospital, something along those lines. But he can't just disappear like that. But it's very, very obvious that he's being used as the scapegoat, as the whipping boy for what's going on. Most of the team is probably angry and frustrated at LeBron, but they can't yell at LeBron.
You got other guys saying, you're not holding this guy accountable. Why'd you trade Kyrie Irving? Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? It is everything that's happened the last 4 years in Cleveland, all these crises, real and imagined. I think I'm on a safe space right now where I say it's never been this bad as it is right now.
I'm not surprised. Once again, LeBron is not, from a metaphorical perspective, LeBron is not the chick that you're going to be married to for 40 years. Okay? He's the chick that you chill with for a few months, and you guys have your good time together. She's great looking, got big titties, fat ass, but after a while, she just has a funky attitude. Her ass got to go. That's LeBron. You have your fun with LeBron, and then you move on to the next. Once again, they're angry at they took out their anger on Kevin Love because they can't get at LeBron that way. I'm sure that there was some ire directed at LeBron in that meeting, but not to the degree that it was directed at Kevin Love.
Now, and some of the things that I was hearing last night, I don't even think it's responsible to repeat, but let's just say that there's all kinds of nastiness flying all over the place out of Cleveland.
Listen to that. Listen to that. Like, how bad could it be that Brian Windhorst does not want to report it? I wonder what he could be referring to. I stated this in another video. Miss Christine, He Raped Me Leahy of Fox Sports 1 of LeVar Ball fame has alleged that there is a story about someone on the Cleveland Cavaliers. She implied that it was LeBron, and I'm prone to believe it because she has some insight and some connections into these various NBA locker rooms. Was involved in a pistol whipping of a player, allegedly. This is according to her, all right? It's not me. She said it. And I'm prone to believe it because, once again, she has some insight into these locker rooms. And this person here, Brian Windhorst, certainly has some insight. I'm not saying that when he's talking about a lot of the toxic statements that were made that he's even referring to that. But I'm sure that there is there's something that's not being reported going on here. There are some things not being reported.
I mean, is this the kind of thing where, Nick, I mean, you travel around the middle of the country. That's kind of your beat right now. You've been in Cleveland. You've been around some of these teams. I mean, do you think getting all this stuff out could help Cleveland? Because, hey, as Brian says, there's some of this stuff that's been brewing since the summer, right? Why did you trade Kyrie? Why did you do whatever? Or do you think now it's kind of going to pass the point of no return?
No, I think the therapy session is good. I think everybody needs to get it out. And look, unless I'm mistaken, they still have LeBron. And they still know when to hit the switch when the playoffs come. So, having watched all these teams in the East, Rachel, and knowing that all the drama is there behind the scenes, I still don't think any team in the East with LeBron James is going to be able to beat them 4 times in a 7-game series.
Are you?
I think that it's more possible than I thought earlier in the season, but I still need to see it myself. I just think that LeBron is such a dominant player that it's going to be very hard for any of these Eastern teams to beat him, unless Boston can make a big trade or something like that.
Are you willing to say that? Are you willing to say that the Cavs are still going to come out of the East?
I still believe so. I look at the Boston Celtics and I say they will be a bit of a challenge. But when I look at them and see what it takes to stop teams in playoff, you double team a guy, you make him make passes. Boston don't have that guy, in my eye, that you have to go and double team.
Well, I'm not sure if I agree with that, Scotty. I think that Kyrie is a guy that you may have to double team if he gets hot enough.
And that's why I still believe that the Cleveland
Rachel, we don't know who's going to be on
Well,
the
that's what I was going to say. So part of this depends, of course, on who is on this team. There is less than 3 weeks to the trade deadline. How much change do you see happening?
Definite change happening. One trade for sure, maybe multiple. They're way down the road on a deal with Sacramento for George Hill. That's like on the 1
just
yard
pointed
line.
out on this show yesterday, George Hill is among the worst defensive players at his position.
I agree, Rachel.
He'll fit right in.
Exactly, he'll fit right in. But that just goes to show you how desperate the Cleveland Cavaliers are right now. I truly believe that LeBron is in full relaxation mode because he doesn't give a shit at this point. His attitude is things are going to be what they're going to be. If it gets that bad, he's just going to leave and go to the Rockets or to the Lakers or whoever he's going to.
Right? Offense is the best defense in this league.
There you go.
Or hell, looking at the way that things are disintegrating with Kawhi, would it shock me to see them try to trade Kawhi in the offseason and sign a LeBron James so that LeBron can fulfill his delusional fantasy of playing with Greg Popovich? We'll see.
At this point, I think they just have to have change. And they're talking to other teams. I was told today that they've been talking to the Lakers, which is stunning because why they would do a deal with the Lakers that potentially could recruit LeBron. But that just shows you they are going all over the league trying to figure this out. I think they're going to make, at this point I would say, likely multiple moves to try to shake this up.
Is Kevin Love still on this team on February 9th after the trade deadline?
Yesterday I would have said yes. Today I say maybe not. And I want to say something. Kevin Love has been a total pro here.
I agree.
He was in trade talks all last summer. He never complained about it publicly. He came back. He should be named All-Star Reserve tonight. We'll see about that. He's lost shots with Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas is out there holding the ball away from Kevin Love. He's scoring everything is plunged. He doesn't make a sound. Today, when the players were asked to talk about it at shoot-around, LeBron said, I don't want to talk about it. The leader of the team said, I don't want to talk about it. Love stood up, answered questions, and said, I hope this is a positive, even if he doesn't necessarily believe that.
Well, of course, LeBron does not want to talk about it because whatever went on in that meeting made him get emotional. He's like a chick. He does not deal with his emotions very well.
He has been a pro here. He doesn't deserve to be treated this way.
Yeah, I agree. And look, he's played out of position. He has said, I don't like playing this way, but I'm going to do it. And then he's been criticized for the defense that he can't play in the position that's not his natural position.
Right.
Tough break.
Well, that's what happens when you play with LeBron. When things are going great, you might get a championship. When things are going bad, you're the one who's going to get thrown under the bus. So you have to be willing to, to make that gamble, make that bet. But anyway, that's the story on the Cleveland Cavaliers for now. I'm sure that more events will transpire, especially as we approach the trade deadline. Peace.